Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon with many of the turf friends we've met over the past 35 years.
Hi, everybody. This is Joel Simmons, and this is another EarthWorks podcast. And I am again happy to have my dear friend Dave Wilber back with me. I don't know, Dave, 6, 7, 8 times. You're one of our highest rated
Am I?
podcasts. Well, I hate to say this to you because I know it'll hurt, but you and Armin Sooney,
All right. No, it
your
doesn't hurt
friend
a bit.
Armin,
Man, that's good.
between the
That's
two of
good.
you, and now I think now Lawrence Mayhew is maybe out surpassing the both of you because
Yeah.
he's getting a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, I've known you for most of my life. I've said this to you many times. I owe you a great debt of gratitude. You have done so much for me. One of the things you did for me was introduced me to Kevin Hicks,
Yeah.
who is now on our team and our best voice on the EarthWorks podcast,
Yeah.
and does a great job and just a wonderful human being. But
You sure is.
you are now the director of agronomy. I'm going to read this. Director of agronomy, and I love this, and customer success at the TurfRad company.
Right.
And we're
Yeah.
going to talk about a lot of that. We talked a little bit about it last time, but it was brand new
Right.
for you at the time. And I wanted to bring you back. And now that you've got the better part of a season under your belt, I want to be able to talk about what you're seeing as successes with the TurfRad system. But let's start by talking about the why of all this. I mean, it's really about water management. And you're really affecting mostly fairways, from my understanding, but and you're not getting down into things like sodium or EC, but you're really getting into really helping people with basic water management. And I've said this to you and to everybody as they listen to the podcast. You know, when I was at Rutgers, teaching somebody how to water properly or to
Yeah.
manage water was all
Yeah.
but impossible.
Yeah.
And if anybody listens to this podcast and listens to me spiel, I ask a lot of superintendents, how do you teach a young guy how to water? And it's an art. I mean, it really is an art. But what you guys are doing is really kind of making that art a lot easier to manage. So let me ask you this, because you've done this many times. How do you teach a young guy how to water?
How did I do it in the past? It was,
Yeah. How would you do it today? I mean, how do you teach a kid coming out of, a 2-year program? How do you water effectively?
I think, well, to go back in the day and to, date myself a little bit, because Jesus, Joel, we're old guys, but
One
you
of
know,
us is, not so
um,
much you.
I mean, when I was coming up in the business, I worked for, some people that were pretty irrigation savvy. So that helped, I think.
Yeah.
But my first superintendent's job in Denver, we didn't have a lot of water. We had wells, and they were, they performed at a certain level, and it was a balancing act,
Right. Yeah.
to make that work. And they were deep wells, or like 1,400-foot deep wells into the aquifer underneath. The Denver area is real deep, and so the water quality wasn't great, but I didn't know much about water quality. I was focused on quantity, at the time. There was a lot of sodium
Yeah.
bicarbonate in that water. There was a lot of hard water, and people in Denver would call it the hard water.
Yeah.
Um, and I just had to learn how to manage it. I had to learn how to, turn water off more than I had to learn how to turn it on. It was way easy to overwater.
Yeah, that might be the first best lesson you can give anybody. It's like, don't, and a young guy that's, looking at something going wrong, what's the first thing they think about is,
Yeah.
shit, let's put some water out there.
So I had to get used to the fairways turning black at 2 in the afternoon, or starting to go, and say, I can't overdo it. I can't boost this by 30% or whatever. Or more importantly, if the fairways weren't starting to wilt, it was an indication to me that I had maybe watered too much.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for that. I was looking, and you can do that in Denver. There's not a lot of water that comes out of the sky, but the night's cool off enough that you're, not gonna, there's some evapotranspiration that goes on during the day, but there's also some gutational water and stuff. You're gonna get some dew on the place in the morning, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I had to learn to quit pulling the trigger.
Right. Turn the damn thing off.
Because all it did was, make the lakes really low and then make the next day even tougher. Now, what do I do? right. I overdid it yesterday. So now today I had to figure out what doesn't get water, and this just doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I had to learn. And I've spent, then um, when I moved to Northern California, it was a very similar kind of deal. We had a water allocation. It's funny, they sold water as miners inches there because that was the gold country in the Sierras.
Yeah. Right.
And a miner's inch was so much water going through a 3-inch sluice box for a certain period of time. It was ridiculous calculation. It comes out to about 9 acre feet. A miner's inch is 9 acre feet in a in an April through October irrigation system season, right? So I had to figure all that out. And again, we weren't fat on water, and it didn't rain there at all between April and October. No.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I got to figure this out again. But by then I think I was getting pretty good at it. And so how did I teach that? The superintendent I took over from there was a great guy, Manny Souza, who went on to Poppy Hills. And Manny's guys all ran a section situation, and I had never run sections before. But I didn't want to change all that up because these guys, his greenkeepers, the guys on the staff are really competent. Like you could tell just the way they moved about and stuff. They were really good at their jobs. Some of them been there a long time. But what I started to notice is a lot of those guys, like, they would mow, they would get their bunkers done and all that sort of stuff, and they come back with a hose. And I could see them tuning up certain spots. One guy would always go to a certain spot. You'd see him. You could almost set your watch by it. And I started to notice that we were having trouble with some of those spots. And so we were poking around, and I got everybody's soil probes so that they could see, does that really need water or not? Took a lot of coaching.
I can imagine.
Oh, Mr. Dave, no, you don't understand. It's like, yeah, I do understand. You're overwatering that because brown isn't necessarily dry.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So we're trying to do the no pesticide thing. I'm not trying to spray fungicide. I'm not trying to, do all that sort of stuff. So water is incredibly important in that situation. So I really had to teach my guys how to look, how to really observe. And they got it. Eventually they got it because they wanted to be good at their jobs.
And this was simply with a probe. I mean, now we've got all sorts of meters that handle
probe, screwdriver. Yeah, this is way before.
Yeah, this is old school stuff. I love that.
And then later, as I was consulting, I was doing a lot of work in Arizona with Kevin Hicks and those people, and we were always talking about water, and a lot of that was born out of Ed Miller.
Right,
it was at Desert Forest before he went to Pebble Beach, for a time, and Ed spoke at a USGA conference at the National. And he talked about his deep and infrequent watering strategy in Arizona, where he was watering push-up greens once a week, maybe, but he was watering deeply, right, and taking advantage of evaporative cooling and all that sort of stuff, And so my brain is going, well, what do you do? How do you know when it's time to go again, right? Like, what's that dry down look like? What do you have to do to set yourself up for that kind of success? And so, we tried to quantify some numbers. Well, is that a moisture percentage? How do we do that? And I remember being with a couple of different supers, and we go out and pull some soil from a green and literally bring it into the shop, weigh it on a gram scale, and then put it in the microwave and dry it down.
Oh, really? That's
cool. And then weigh it again, and then try to figure out what the water
like they do in the labs.
Yeah. I was like, well, this is how we do it in the lab. So let's try this, And we were trying to figure out, well, what is that moisture percentage? What's the best moisture percentage for bent grass in the desert? Is it 13%? Is it 18%? And, we're talking about one sample.
Yeah.
To do that. I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was just more curiosity than anything. And again, it was, trying to teach the guys what's wet and what's dry. So when the moisture meters came out, I got super excited about that, both from a water standpoint, from a moisture standpoint, and from a salinity standpoint.
Management standpoint. Yeah. What year was that? When did the moisture meters start to come into our industry? I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. So 2000
early 90s? Or was it was that 90s? Late?
Yeah, 90s? It wasn't early 90s because I was still growing grass, and it was probably 2000 something.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was earlier than that, but okay.
There were moisture meters, Joel. I had one. It was a conductivity meter. And then you had to do the math to figure out the moisture, and it was dielectric you
Right.
know.
Nowadays, the moisture meters and the EC meters do everything.
Yeah, yeah. And then so, the concept of how those work, right? Is like, there's two tines, and it's measuring the conductivity is what happens between the tines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the moisture is how fast the dielectric current goes up and down the tine.
Hmm.
The slower it goes, the wetter it is.
Makes sense. Right.
Right? Yeah. Water slows things down, right? Quicker, more conductive here. And and it's doing the math. So that's kind of it was like, hey, this is great because at least this quantifies things, but it's a lot like the stimp meter. An 11 on the stimp meter at one place and 11 on another place are two different ways that you put the ball.
Right.
You know
Exactly.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this idea that we could compare on the television or whatever. Well, the greens were 11 at so and so, and they're 13 here.
That's the grain. It's just the
Faster back
grain.
then.
It's the grain.
Yeah, it's the grain and all that bullshit that those guys come up with.
Yeah.
But it was a great way to quantify it, just like the stimp meter was designed
Yeah.
to quantify inside your golf course.
Right.
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 Yeah. And so it was an easy concept for people to pick up on, and it really helped people learn. And some people went way overboard. I remember going to a place one time, and it's like they'd probably poked the screen about 100 times, and they threw flags. They had a 3 flag system, right? Wet, dry, and okay. And so every time they poked, if it was wet, it got a green flag. If it was dry, it got a red flag. Okay was yellow or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's 100 flags on the screen, and then the guy hand watering is supposed to come along, and he's supposed to deal with this, right, and pick up all the
And
flags.
take all the flags away. Yeah.
And I thought, man, that's a lot. And shit, we weren't even talking about fairways, Joel. This is just greens. I
This
mean,
is just greens. Yeah.
yeah,
Constructed sites.
those TDRs were getting used on greens, and that's what everybody wanted to know. That's what everybody wanted to talk about. And I'm thinking to myself, well, someday we're going to have to figure this out for fairways.
Right.
And there were some people poking fairways, but you poke a par four fairway 5-6 times, and okay, this is close.
Yeah. It's good enough.
Yeah, it's not good enough. And we've learned that now that I've looked at literally thousands of maps
Yeah.
of what the TurfRad sensor does. I know that we were wrong about a lot of stuff. And so
Dave, let me ask you, deep and infrequent watering, there's some controversy.
Oh shit, I can't believe I brought that up.
Well, no, I love the idea, and you know that. But does it work in high humidity areas?
No,
Okay.
no, it
All right.
doesn't.
So, I mean, and that's the controversy. I mean, all the guys on the East Coast say, we can't do this.
Yeah, no.
I remember Glenn Smickley having this conversation. That's bullshit. We can't do this here. It's the humidity is too high and the moisture is up and down all the time. But certainly west of the Mississippi, I mean, it's really the way to go. I've had a couple superintendents just recently discovering deep and infrequent, and just it's changed their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
know?
I mean, there's a caveat to the whole thing. The USGA green, the perched water table, right? Eventually it needs to flush.
Right.
Eventually, for it to really exchange oxygen and get rid of salts and do all the things that it's supposed to do, you really do need to throttle those things every once in a while.
Yeah, get it all out
and do a flush,
and
right?
get air back in.
And take advantage of of that. So if you're just dribbling water on every night, which is fine for playability and for pathology and things like that, right? That's what your East Coast guys are talking about. That's good, but eventually that system is not designed to work that way, and
Right.
it's got to get flushed.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people have learned that. They don't maybe talk about it as much. Some people once a month is enough. Some people, it depends on their water quality.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a reason to deepen infrequent everywhere when you're talking about a perched water table.
Right. And a flush.
That's the flush. That's the the leaching fraction, whatever
Right.
you want to call it. And that's important for people to understand that. But yeah, from a day-to-day thing, I've had people move from east to west and west to east, as clients, and they go, what was working here isn't working.
It doesn't work over there. What's going on here,
I'm in
Dave?
trouble here. I don't like this. And it's like, okay, let's go through it.
Is it easier to go east to west or west to east?
It doesn't matter.
It's grass.
Well,
Depends on where you go, I guess.
grass is grass.
easy.
I think The people that survive those kind of things are the keen observers who know what they're looking for.
Yeah, yeah,
And now we're really reaching an age of data driven kind of stuff,
yeah,
and now we can quantify that.
yeah.
Clipping yield. I used to think about clipping yield like this. I'd look in the back of the guy's cart when he was dumping his
Right.
clippings, and I knew about how much ought to come out of those
What's
baskets.
coming in? Yeah, what's the basket look
Yeah,
like?
yeah, we weigh them, we dry them,
Yeah.
we do all kinds of stuff. It's great, right? But
Yeah,
like,
it's a common question. How's your, you're filling your basket. You're filling your basket. How much you getting?
yeah, we ask that all the time, but it never occurred to me to weigh them or
Yeah,
do a
right.
uh whatever per whatever
Yeah.
you
I
know
mean, and actually, in our world, a full basket is often not a good thing because it's
not
probably
a,
means that you got too much nitrogen going here.
well,
True.
when I was first experimenting with all the things that we love, with carbon nutrition, Joel,
Yeah.
every once in a while, and my guys would tell me, they're like, I don't know what you sprayed yesterday, but like I'm getting three baskets when I was getting one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, that's not what we wanted to do.
That wasn't the intent. Yeah.
And Primo wasn't available, right? So it's like, I guess we're mowing greens this afternoon or
Yeah.
tonight.
And tonight. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
both.
no, yeah, it was horrible. And
Let
then,
me let
but
me ask you this question, Dave. And this kind of, is pertinent to what we're going to go into in detail with the TurfRad, but explain to us what LDS is and the chemistry, biology, physics of localized dry spots.
localized dry spot is interesting, right? Because basically, there's a couple ways to explain it. One, in some cases, there's a pathogen involved. There's a
Mhm.
fairy ring thing starting to develop. That's one bit, right?
Yep.
So you got to know, kind of what you're looking at. But the true localized dry spot, really, and I love this explanation, is if you go to the ocean, with your beach towel and get it super wet and leave it in the sun, it dries. It's real crusty in one spot and not in others,
Yeah.
right? The salts
Great,
find their,
great analogy.
the salts find their friends.
Yeah.
Okay. Those charges attract and they come together, in a localized dry spot.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of cases, I think to me, that is a mineral management,
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's also a moisture management sort of thing, and it's a indicator that there's a lot of things that you could do or look at.
What, how about bicarbonates? Are they a part of that scene?
Yeah, sodium bicarbonate is a big thing, and the localized dry spot that comes together in that pattern
Yeah.
and turns white on the top is a great indicator.
Yeah.
That's
And you can feel it. I mean, you've done this 1,000 times,
crunch.
as have I.
Yeah.
You can feel it, you can feel it pushing the probe through. It's just hard to get through that first inch and then pop.
Yeah. So do we vent that? Do we hit it with small tines? Yes. Do we get a wetting agent together? Sure. I mean, there's 7 different actions that you can take on a localized dry spot. To
Seven?
I think so. What is it? I wrote a thing about this once. It's like it's water, a water. It's an acid for penetration, a water mover, for penetration as far as wetting agent goes, a water holder.
Yeah.
Where am I at? A venting tine, a solid tine deep, you know, a
What?
change a change in the water in the
Yeah.
looking at the uniformity, on your sprinkler heads. There's like 7 things that you can go look
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
for LDS.
Okay. One of the things that we've always talked about is one of the byproducts of this is dead biology below
Yeah.
that seal. Now
Yeah.
biology, there's no air left, so biology is gone. So it now becomes hydrophobic. So I would hope one of your 7 is a biological push just to
It
get that
is.
microbes
Well,
back in and
one of
some
7
glomalin.
is add carbon.
Yeah,
Feed,
getting
feed
microbes
the little
fed.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you could do we do, do I want to use a humic acid? Do I want to actually mix a little compost and sand, kind of
Hmm.
top dress those areas that indent? There's a ton of stuff like that to do.
Yeah.
And
It's interesting when we started EarthWorks, LDS was, we always were getting blamed. Same thing, but you mentioned fairy ring. And I got a question last week from a superintendent about fairy ring and carbon
God,
and it's, and I tell this story and you might remember this, but when we got started in the early 90s, we were starting to get some notoriety. And then they came out and said, "Oh, you don't want to put any of that carbon stuff down. It'll give you a fairy ring."
You know where that came from, Joel?
I
That
don't actually.
that came from Milorganite. It came from heat extruded
Oh, I
products like
didn't know
Milorganite.
that.
And
Well, that makes
and
sense, actually.
at one point in time, Milorganite was kind of the only thing that you could kind
Yeah,
of get in that thing. And then Milorganite was really hydrophobic
yeah,
as
yeah.
a material, right?
Yeah, and and it was funny because at the same time, then the California method came out, the construction method with no organic at all, and the biggest problems they had was fairy ring. There was no organic in it at all.
Yeah.
But I think, and I'm hoping I'm going to reach out to Dr. Fidanza here at Penn State and have him come on and talk to us about fairy ring because he's
That'd be fun.
he's basically come to me and said, no, it has nothing to do with it's all about moisture and it's all about drought and I mean it's all about that and I say this to a lot of superintendents, if you had a droughty summer, be careful because next summer that fungal spore is going to really take off and run and you're going to get fairy ring and then of course they apply some earthworks ahead of it and then they get fairy ring like, oh, well, it must have been the
I
organic.
think
I'm like,
it
no,
was your organics, Joel, because the book
and it's a
says
spit in the ocean.
Dr. Beard's book says that if you
Yeah,
have too much carbon, you have fairy ring, right? And
yeah.
in a way, that's true. That pathogen is trying to fix nitrogen.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what's
it's a good
turning the
point. Yeah,
grass.
there's some, as in most things, some validity to all this. Let's get into what you've seen. So you've now been, how long have you been doing TurfRad? You started in
Uh,
a year ago, January?
it's a year and 3 months now, I think.
Oh, has it been that long? Wow, that's
Yeah.
that's great. So we talked 6, 8 months ago. It was kind of new. You didn't have a lot of experience under your belt. I want to hear, I want to hear the success stories, and I want to hear, and if there is anything that's not a success story, I mean things that you've learned.
Yeah.
But I love this technology, and and I've followed you on a lot of stuff, and I've you and I have talked, but I want you to talk about what this technology is actually doing for the success of the golf course superintendent.
Well, I think it comes down to this, Joel. Uh, well, there's a lot of stuff. This is
I
fun.
know, I know. We
This-
we got 25, 30 minutes.
but
Go for it.
but
Maybe
but
40. I don't know.
I think the fun thing for me, has been somebody who first says to me, Dave, I don't understand this. I know my golf course. I know the wet spots and I know the dry spots. I don't know why I need a map of it,
That's a good point.
right? I know my place.
Yeah, I mean they're there every day walking it and
Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, listen, I I hear you. I was that guy. I knew where every low spot was and every high spot, and I get it, right? That's how I manage grass. But what I'm saying to you is that you probably don't know it as well as you think you do. That's one.
yeah.
And two is, and again, for the people that where water comes out of the sky, sometimes, do you know what's happening after a rain event on those areas? How quickly are they drying? How quickly are and so what we've done is we've showed a lot of people that what they've been doing inadvertently is in order to water their dry spots, they've been getting their wet spots wetter, you know,
Yeah, good point.
and after a rain event or something like that, most people, I would say 90% of our people who have, a rain kind of thing, have learned that I turn on the water way too quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't need to turn on half of what I was turning on because I'm being pressured by the dry spots, and I'm not thinking that the wet spots are going to get worse.
Mm.
In
Yeah.
that 30-foot circle or 50-foot circle or whatever the head is throwing, there's a lot of variability in terrain at most places, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, what do I do? Do I hand water these? Do I spend the labor to hand water these spots and take care of it, or do I need to fire heads? If I do fire heads, is it nighttime watering? Is it daytime catching up? And all those things. And suddenly we have a map of that. We have a picture of that. And not only do we have a picture of it for once, but then they go out and they do what they do, and they have a picture of it again. Did that work? Did that not work? Did that wetting agent really even out my moisture? And they can quantify that, whether they're focused on the colors or they're just green is good, blue is too wet, or if they really want to dig into the numbers are there. And so it's like having a virtual TDR, and
across the course. Yeah.
and it has helped so many people learn about their golf course. And so, I've had a lot of very experienced, very, worthy superintendents, probably some people that are better at it than I would ever be, say to me, I've learned a ton about my golf course.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I've been able to translate that and help my guys,
Right.
figure out how to get it done. So that's part of it. The other side of it, I think, that is because everybody wants to talk about ROI, Joel. They want to talk about how much in the West, we spend a lot of money on water,
Yeah.
this sort of thing. Where's the return on investment? Well, water savings for some people, it pays for itself in weeks, but for some people, water savings is an issue. They don't pay for water. Maybe they pump water. That might be the only cost they have is just the electricity.
The electricity, yeah.
So then aren't we in the business of playability? John Fleming used to say to me, Wilber, these aren't museums. We got to be able to play them. Right. That's his whole thing. A long-time guy.
And he was right. He was always right. And every golf course superintendent knows that. At the end of the day, it's always about playability, right?
I loved when he'd say that to me after, the seventh cigarette. He would say, it's not a museum. And so, these places have to play. And golfers know, when they're getting an extra kick on the fairways or not.
Yeah.
They know if the cart tires are pushing water or their shoes are wet, and they talk about it. Whether anybody wants to believe this or not, they talk about it.
Yeah.
I imagine that golfers talking about conditions, huh?
Yeah. Right.
Whether it's in the men's grill or the bar down the street from the, but yeah, they talk about this stuff. And one of the things that we've seen in a lot of situations is, we have golfers, sometimes some of the most critical golfers, coming to the superintendent saying, I don't know what you're doing, but my feet aren't wet anymore.
Yeah.
Or that area that I usually hit my ball into where it rolls down into the little gully it's not a swamp.
Yeah, exactly. It's not messy anymore.
What are you doing different? What are you applying different? And so playability, the playability factor has to come into it. And I think probably the biggest example that we've seen of that is we have a couple of sets of sensors that are basically traveling with the circus with a couple of the different agronomists on the PGA Tour, right? So they're setting these up, and I'm not. Let me be very clear here. This is not an endorsement. They're not endorsing anything.
No, I understand that.
We provide these sensors to them, and get the back end going and all that sort of stuff. And so what kind of happens is this group of sensors, 5, 6 sensors, however many, roll in during an advanced week, unless the super's already a user.
Yeah.
Then the sensors roll into an advanced week. They, we get them mounted up, we get them mapped up, and we get them out scanning. And immediately it starts to quantify some numbers for the superintendent and the agronomist about where they're headed for the tournament.
Perfect.
And if it's raining, okay, our overall, and we call this the video game a little bit, Thomas Bastis coined that, and he's right. The overall percentage of my fairways, if I take all the readings and aggregate them, is 28% after this rain event. We're at 28%.
Right.
And then now we don't get any rain for 2 or 3 days, and we're losing X percent, during like maybe 3 or 4% every day. So that's what our dry down looks like.
Yeah.
And now they can start to talk about that, and they can quantify that. And even the rules officials now are starting to ask about it.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Because maybe at 28%, there's mud on the ball, and at 25%, there's not.
Yeah. So they can see it that visually.
Yeah. So so do we play the ball down after this big rain, or do we play it up, or what do we do? And so that anybody who's ever hosted an event knows that the dry down for the event sometimes is where you can really get your ass in trouble.
Yeah, and we've seen many major tournaments where exactly that has happened. It was dried down so far that they were, they were killed.
And typically the rules people and all those, don't use the overhead irrigation.
Yeah, they don't let you water at all. They take it all away.
Hose, or they've slammed a spike right next to the head, right where the with the ropes or something, and that head is all jacked up now. All those sorts of tournament things.
And it's drying out, and they're dying, and they're like Can you imagine being sitting in your office and being told you can't do anything and you're just watching your property
Yeah. Oh no,
choke itself out?
I've been there. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
we've had some situations where, when I was consulting, where it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is just going from bad to worse, and
Right, right.
everybody and the rules officials don't want any water on the
Yeah.
golf course. Nobody wants to change anything. The guy who has the tent next to the sprinkler that you
Right.
need to run is
Exactly.
like, you're screwing up my food
Yeah,
tank.
don't do that. I think that the whole tournament experience with the system that you're running is a brilliant combination. I
So
really do.
this is what I say to people. Whether you want to believe it or not, my Subaru that's sitting out in the outside here, it has some technology in it that basically was born at an F1 race or a NASCAR race or a rally or something like that, right? Somebody invented some piece of code or technology or whatever that's in
Right.
my Subaru that came from a racing event. And it's kind of the same idea, right? We There's a lot of information that we've gotten. Every time something scans, there's information. And
Right.
then but in a pressure, we have to figure this out right now, make a difference right now. We don't have weeks, to do this. This is everybody's watching situation. It really puts you on the, puts you on the notice that things are important. What
Right.
what it does is it lets you learn a lot. And
Yeah.
we've learned a lot about calibration and tuning, because every soil is different, every golf
Right.
course is different, everybody's grass is a little, so the sensor needs a little bit of the algorithm, needs to be tweaked a little bit
The technology. Yeah. Go
just to
back a
show.
second here, Dave, and for those who don't know of the TurfRad, just explain it to us again. What is it? What's the technology?
Yeah,
if you've been to the show, you got to go see them. But not everybody is completely aware of what TurfRad really is. But give us a 2 minute.
the TurfRad sensor is an L band, passive L band microwave radiometer. It's an antenna, right? And so basically what it does is it bounces a signal. The sky is the reference point. There's no moisture up there, or there's moisture in the atmosphere, but it's looking at what goes on in the soil. It does it to uh, essentially a 3.5 inch depth.
Hmm.
No matter what the terrain is, it's not a ground penetrating radar. It's not putting energy into the ground. It's just receiving energy that's coming from the ground, and that's in a particular narrow band that then gets taken, um, formed into the dielectric conductivity, and that takes it to what's the best way to say this, to the volumetric water content of the soil.
So we can
Right?
identify that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's reading what that volume and the water content, and in this particular case, it's showing you not just what might be locked up in thatch or whatever. It's everything that's here that's plant available via
Hmm. Hmm.
PWC. So it's a great way to look at what that soil is doing, uh, and it works on various soils. It doesn't matter. It just needs a little bit of tuning as far as how strong that antenna, um, receives signals, right? Is it, are we, we kind of in a, not a lot of energy coming off the grass or tons of energy coming off the grass. We just have to adjust the gain a little bit on them
Right.
sensors.
Right.
There's no moving parts. There's nothing to wear out. There's no energy coming back in. It's powered off of the same kind of circuit that charges your iPhone,
No, that's good. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
and that just runs the lights and the
Right. Right.
on the chip and all that sort of stuff, and then the antenna that uploads it to. So then the data gets collected, um, and it uploads its data via Wi-Fi to the TurfRad servers. The algorithm kicks in, processes that, takes it about 15 minutes to process from a usual run on a golf course. You're getting about 10,000 measurements on a par four fairway, and that data is getting crunched, and then a map is, and you get to choose what color green is. Do you want it to be 12%? You want it to be 18%? Whatever. We're not trying to tell superintendents how to run their specific golf courses. We're trying to give them information
The data.
so they can run it.
Are you actually giving them percentage of moisture?
Yeah.
Oh, you are. Okay. I didn't realize it was that detailed. That's good.
Yeah. And so
So just so I
the
can go
pixels
back, just so everybody understands, these are mounted sensors that are mounted on a triplex or on a utility cart or
yeah,
whatever vehicle you want to mount them on, right? And it just
right.
mounts on the back and you just drive up and down the fairway. And you did mention some guys are starting to use them on greens. But you drive mostly it's fairway, so you're driving up and down the fairway and it's taking 10,000 pictures of
Yeah,
that.
it takes 7 readings a second as the
Wow.
sensor goes along.
Yeah.
So if you're going super fast, obviously,
Yeah.
but the usual, 5 to 7 mile an hour drive down a fairway is
Right.
kind of what
Right.
everybody does. And yeah, it took me a little bit to get my hands around the, how legit is this? I mean, is it, can it really give me all this information?
Yeah.
But I think part of that too was understanding resolution. It's a meter. The sensor reads about 4 feet on either side of it, so about 8 foot total.
Right.
And then the resolution on the thing is 3 by 3.
Right.
So but it will tell you, like, you can zoom all the way in and it will tell you what that moisture percentage was, what the uniformity of moisture was in that 3 by 3
You're doing that on the computer, not on the
pixel.
on the
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's the
once
data
it's
that
all
gets
once you're in
from
your
us.
shop, you can play with the data and really kind of go up and down with it. Let me ask you a couple things about this. Now, we talked and it was brand new, a year ago.
Yeah.
And you were getting the earliest adapters. Are you starting to break through some of
Yeah.
those and getting into I mean, I know you've had a lot of changes in the year, so uh, my first thought of this is, it's for the guy that just loves data and gathers data. Is what we call the high C in the disk profile, and he
Right.
just he just goes after every ounce of data he can get and just runs with it and is overloaded with data. But that's really gone beyond those guys now to. One
Yeah.
of the things, and you said this earlier, a guy that walks his fairways knows where the dry spots are. I've always said this, but I think golf course superintendents are some of the most intuitive people in any industry because they live it so much. But I also think that equipment like this, a soil test, any kind of technology enhances their natural intuition. It confirms it. And I think what you're seeing with your equipment at TurfRad is that it's definitely defining or qualifying their intuition, which is I think is wonderful. I mean, like you said, guys are saying, "Well, I know where my hot spots are," and then they do this, and I was like, "Wow, it's much bigger than I ever thought." Confirming their
Yeah.
intuition and
Uh,
strengthening their intuition.
Well, and sometimes saying to them, "Hey, you thought you had it, but you don't."
Right.
Which is, sorry about my dogs. The UPS guy probably is here, protecting us
All
from
good. We
evil
love dogs
spirits.
here at the EarthWorks podcast.
But yeah, it's also, and people don't want to admit this, but it's shown a lot of people they've been wrong about some stuff.
That's what it's all about, right? You know, get me on the right track so I'm not missing something.
Yeah. So if your ego isn't in the way and you're saying, "Hey, I really want to learn here and I really want to teach my staff and I want, all that sort of stuff," then yeah, then
Yeah.
you say, "Hey, we've got to fix our problem."
Have you had to manage that? Don't mention anybody's name, but I mean, have you had to go through the ego adjustment
Sure.
on some of your clients?
Absolutely.
That's how do you manage that? I mean, how do you,
I manage it the way I've always managed it, Joel. Like, clear back to the day when I walk into a superintendent's office, when I was primarily involved with soil testing, and they said soil tests are bullshit. This will
right?
never work. My soils, blah 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 blah. Right? I manage it the same way. It's like, listen, you're probably right, but let's check it out.
Let's just confirm that. Yeah.
Let's look. Let's
I
look
don't
a
know
little.
how many times I've said that in my career, Dave.
The problem is I can't demo this. It's not like I'm giving somebody a $10 soil test or $55 soil test or whatever, and it
Yeah.
costs, this is a different deal. So it's a little harder to ground prove it, but we have enough use cases and enough people out there using
Yeah.
it that I
Yeah.
can get
Yeah.
somebody to talk to somebody, or I can go through what we call our pitch deck that
Right.
has a lot of information, and it makes people intrigued.
Hmm.
And they start to go, okay, maybe I do need to look a little harder. Maybe I want to get better. And look, some people don't want to get better.
Yeah.
And I hate that,
Yeah.
because, like, I want everybody to, sure, I'd love it if all 22,000 golf courses grab this thing, and but that's not a reality. And
That's not going to happen. Yeah.
yeah,
I learned that long. I thought the same thing 30 years ago, but that's not going to happen.
what
Let
I
me ask you
love,
this.
well,
You've
let me
been,
just
go
finish that.
ahead.
Let me punctuate that with one thing, which what I love here though is that it's definitely uh the middle ground user, the people
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
really, the C's that want to be B's and are trying really hard to get there. Like this is really helping them.
Good.
You know,
That's great.
the upper echelon guys, yeah, they've got it. They've got another use case kind of thing or whatever. But we've really helped some people really discover uh, and make some big changes.
Yeah.
In the middle ground, and I'm for that. I love that.
Of course. That's incredible. I mean, taking that, giving that guy that success.
Yeah.
What surprises you? I mean, what have you found as a surprise following the data since you've been doing this now better part of a year? What things did you not expect to see when you started this, and now all of a sudden you're saying, "Wow, that's interesting."
Well, I can, in theory, there's theory and there's practice. And I'm kind
Right.
of a practice guy.
Yep.
And I'm a field guy. And what we started to really see early on was pressure problems and nozzling problems, and just
Oh,
that head should not be there kind of stuff.
oh, that's interesting.
There's a
That's
lot
good.
of poorly
Yeah.
laid out irrigation systems in the world,
Oh, yeah.
and it's often really hard to show that to somebody. Maybe you know, but it's like, here's the map, and that map can go to the green committee or to the owner or to the golf pro, or whoever wants to talk about it and say, look, this is an inherent problem in our system, and this is a place where if we spend some money we could tune this up.
Yeah. That
And
makes
it
sense.
isn't about just running it more or running it less.
Yeah.
This is a head that should be spaced at 55 feet that's at 75 feet
Yeah.
because somebody didn't want to go around a tree root or something.
Yeah.
um,
That's interesting. I mean, when we first started talking about this, that never even occurred to me that this could be an indicator of good or bad irrigation systems. But of
absolutely.
course it is. That makes perfect sense. Now you
It's
say it.
also an indication of good or bad drainage.
Right. So let's talk about that. How do you, once you identify bad drainage in a fairway, how do you fix it?
Well, you go drain it.
So you're just identifying the places that you have to come in and do the work,
Yeah, or drains that are working. Oh, I
or
know
drains that aren't working. Yeah,
there's a
there you
drain
go.
right there. Why is that so wet all the time? And then
Because it's
they go
clogged
out and
up.
find out that it's jacked up, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a bunch of that. There's been a bunch of proving it right. One particular superintendent called me after a rain event, and he goes, the three holes that we just did the drainage project on are like completely different than the rest of the golf course. Like
Shocking.
it's completely evident, right? Takes that printout, to the owner,
Confirms it,
club president, and
qualifies it.
everything, and says, look what just happened. We got an inch of rain last night. You know, this is uniform. It's X% drier. I forget what it was. It doesn't matter. And these other areas that we haven't touched, look what they did.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how do I write the check? They
Right.
can
I was
write
going
the
to say,
check.
so they went and drained the rest of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sold the
Yeah.
project. So we've seen some of that. We've seen people really dig into nozzle changes and start to really tune, and
Interesting.
say, okay, I'm gonna, I don't want to just sit here and play with times over and over again here when the precip rate is wrong or the uniformity is wrong. Let's really fix it.
Yeah.
Let's fix what's really going on here instead of just turning it up, turning it down randomly,
It, it,
or whatever.
is it complicated to read the data? I mean, you're
Oh,
pumping out a ton of data. I mean, I've talked to you about this enough. I almost got overwhelmed thinking about, I mean, you're saying there's 10,000 spots on the fairway. I mean, that just overwhelms me by thinking
I
about
know,
the
right?
amount.
I know.
But I mean, is it overwhelming? I mean, have people gone past all that?
Yeah, the file sizes are relatively small because really it's just, it's one data point, right? It's the dielectric
Okay, gotcha.
constant and it's
Yeah,
the GPS location,
yeah.
right?
There you
And
go.
that's
Makes
that's
sense.
what it's grabbing. And yeah, it's geolocating those data. So it's actually, they're not huge files. They process pretty quickly because we run good servers. And um, you know, it, it's been rare cases where it's taken more than an hour to actually process the upload process sometimes because people's Wi-Fi is funky and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were
locked
saying
down
that.
and all kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, we've that's been really Wi-Fi and power have been the thing, making sure the thing is powered, all the time. We mostly was running off cigarette lighters at the beginning, and the cigarette lighter bounces or the guy's coat moves it, and
Right,
the sensor
exactly. Or it
shuts
doesn't
off.
work at all.
Yeah.
What is
And
it
then
now? How do you power it now?
we have developed some wiring kits where they can direct wire
Oh,
to
really? Okay, so to
to the
whatever the
wiring,
piece of equipment is
to the wiring harness.
okay.
But for our our demo sensors and our traveling circus fleet and all that sort of stuff, we're relying on the cigarette lighter. But we can also use a power pack.
Just the battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing that that I keep in my briefcase to charge my cell phone or my
Oh,
laptop.
really? Something that small?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's pretty cool.
It only needs 2 amps, and it doesn't draw a lot of power. So for some of our
Oh,
situations,
all right.
we just
Yeah,
run
I'm envisioning, putting it on the battery of the equipment, or
no,
carrying an
no,
extra car battery in the back of the cart. But no, it
no,
makes perfect sense. It's not going to draw a lot.
no. We need 2 amps and 5 volts. It's nothing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun, right? So there's ways through the whole power thing. We just need to get people to recognize,
Yeah.
because the sensor loses power. It's got a battery internal, right? It'll run for a little while, and
Yeah.
then the battery finally, craps
Yeah,
out.
of course. You
But
just
a
put
lot of
another
time,
one.
but think about it when you're turning the light switch on and on and on and off. It's bad, right? And
Right.
so, like, here's that cigarette lighter thing sitting there vibrating, sensor on, sensor off, sensor on, sensor off, and it finally just knocks them into I quit.
Yeah, I've had enough. Yeah, exactly.
I quit.
I get. Tell me about some of the, some of the folks that have played with this and have been overwhelmed by its success. I mean, I know you've had a lot of great success, but
Yeah.
share a story. You don't have to mention any names, but I'd love to hear, I mean, I can't imagine that you haven't had a lot of skeptics and they still brought it in thinking, I'm going to try this and I think it's going to be crap, but then all of a sudden they're blown away by it. I mean,
Yeah,
give me
we
the stories.
definitely. I mean, listen, everything, Joel, whether it works or not, is going to have a skeptic.
Of
And,
course.
and it's funny to me sometimes when people are not using it right and they're skeptics, and then
Yeah,
we help them. And so that's what Miranda Robinson, my
that's wonderful.
agronomy teammate,
Yeah.
who ex superintendent herself,
Could grow
and
grass.
and yeah, a real green thumb, and she's really good at working with the guys and saying, okay, tell me how you do this, right? And then we've got some tools on the back end so we can see where their guys are traveling and stuff. I'll give you a couple examples of some stuff where we got the this shit doesn't work phone call. If a mower is tracking right next to another mower, it messes up the thing. It's got to
Oh,
have
it blocks the signal or blocks.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's got to have a couple. If a leaf blower, we had one guy attach his buffalo blower, to his cart because he's going to go out and drive the golf course. So might as well go blow clippings or leaves.
And run a sensor at the
And
same
the
time.
sensor's pointed right at the buffalo blower, and of course it doesn't get anything. It's like this shit doesn't work, you know.
Yeah.
And then we finally find out that the guy's got a. But we can go in and we can see a lot of things,
Oh, that's too funny.
on what's going on.
And that's not common sense. I mean, having a buffalo blower in the back of your
I
mower.
listen. Well, and drag mats, metal drag mat.
Oh,
A lot of people use a drag mat behind their
sure,
mowers,
sure.
or things like that. And
Yeah.
then TV towers and the microwave systems that they use on TV towers for tournaments and stuff.
Oh,
We can tell when they turn some of that stuff on, especially like around 10 and 18, where it's where all the shit's going on. It'll mess up the signal, you know.
wow.
So but usually we're out early enough that it doesn't matter
Yeah, they're not doing
because
it. Yeah.
because it runs in the dark. It doesn't need a light source.
Right.
Yeah, there've just been there've been a few people. One of our very favorites, Joel. I mean, I think I can talk about this.
Do it.
Javier Campos called me from the Cal Club not long ago, and he was pretty skeptical about some stuff, and he was showing me some situations in San Francisco weather. I mean, it can,
Especially on that hill. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it can be foggy, it can be misty, it can be rainy. Then suddenly the sun comes out. I mean, there's a lot of variability, and he's growing fescue fairways,
Yeah.
you know, and he's sand capped.
Yeah.
And there was too much variability in some of the stuff that you were seeing, and he was double checking a few of the numbers with his TDR. Our stuff was reading 2, 3, 4% moisture, and turning it bright red, and his TDR was 9.5, 10%, which for him his sweet spot is like around 12.
So how do you explain that?
And so yeah, we just had to do some tuning on the sensitivity of the sensors. The data is
based on the sand cap. I mean, is that what
yeah,
the variable was? Okay.
based on the soil type and the fescue, the
Right, right.
reflectivity of a fescue
Oh,
surface,
the
and
variety, the variety. I didn't even think about that. The variety would
yeah,
make a difference, wouldn't it?
it can.
So why
And
the hell do they have fescue at the Cal? Oh, I know why. Dave Wilber.
I know why.
Sorry, but
Because
I
Joel,
love the Cow Club is one of my favorites.
because it's an heirloom grass, Joel.
Yes,
Because
yes,
the
it is.
heirloom grasses are the heart and soul of historical golf.
There you go. And it's quite stunning to be honest with you. But
But anyway, Javier shared some information with me, and we talked through some weather situations and some stuff, and he said, there's a couple of points there where I'm not sure that I can rely on this, and I need to rely on it more. When I get into the
sure, why
edge of,
wouldn't I? Yeah.
and I sent all that information to our team, and two of our guys spent a weekend crunching data, looking at what the dielectric constant was on the actual raw data of the sensor, and then how does that flow into the algorithm that makes the map.
Yeah.
And they were able to do some tuning and reprocessing, and it's like now we're in line with what Javier was talking to me about
Yeah.
ECs.
Yeah.
And so my hats off to Javier. I wish he'd have called me a month earlier, 2 months earlier.
Right.
We could have gone on it. But he's a keen observer anyway.
He is.
And so, and he had answers for all of my questions, and then I could translate that into rocket science a little bit.
Good.
So we kind of have turf heads and we have rocket boys, and
right.
And we kind of speak the same language. These guys have learned a lot of agronomy, and it's fun to watch
your guys. Yeah. That's probably fun. Yeah.
Inventors of TurfRad, or
right.
And the tech guys, the guys writing code and stuff. They love us. They think we're the greatest bunch of people.
I bet. Let me ask you a really weird question about the Cow Club. They've got all sorts of airplanes flying overhead. Does that affect anything?
No.
It's too far away.
Yeah.
But a mower right next to it or a buffalo blower behind it will mess the whole bloody thing up.
So we found out there's 2 holes where the guys kind of meet up and they mow together.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. And that was jacking up some of the readings.
Oh, that's funny.
But we had to go through again, we have some tools, and Miranda's exceptional at this. She goes into the timestamps, like where was the sensor when?
Right.
And we can look at each individual sensor. We can figure out, okay, and it's like, oh, these guys are right on top of each other here at the same time.
Yeah, because your data shows exactly where they are. I mean, each data point shows you the GPS spot on the fairway. Or the location on the property. All right. So you can go back and identify exactly where this piece of data is coming from on the property.
At what time?
And it's date stamped. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, that's a lot of data.
Well, yeah, GPS is date and time stamped, and
right, of course, that makes sense.
Whole thing. And that's how it has to work, right? So we can now see when the guys take a long break in the trees.
Exactly. When they stop to call their girlfriends or whatever they have to do. And I don't want to go down that road too far, but yeah, there's a nap going on maybe.
So we had a situation where the guys were coming in to wash, and the radius, we set a radius around the shop in the app, right? That will tell the sensor whether it should be into collection mode or upload mode. Right.
Yeah.
And so the guys were coming in, and they were coming to the wash pad, and it was right on the edge of the thing, and it was getting a really weak Wi-Fi signal. And they were washing the machine down, and then they go park it, and it was taking forever for the thing to upload. Well, it turns out the logic in the sensor just needed to be told, hey, keep looking for a better Wi-Fi signal. Don't stop on the weak one that you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it channels up. That's where the Rocket Boys have.
So you guys were able to make that change.
Yeah, we had.
That's pretty cool. That makes perfect sense.
Miranda,
my cell phone did that.
Mo looked at it and she's like, okay, I see the guys are coming in and they're stopping at this one spot. And then she's looking at the satellite image and that's the wash pad. Okay. So it was like, all we got to do is shrink that radius down a little bit so it doesn't hit the wash pad.
Right.
Right. So we did this, stuff like that. And that's
kind of cool. I mean, that's really it's got to be pretty, rewarding and fun.
Yeah, that's where the customer success part of it comes in.
There you go.
That's not agronomy. That's just
which is in your title. I like that.
Yeah. And then we asked the guys to build some tools for us so that we could see some things, like how many files were still on the sensor.
Yeah.
Upload times, some different things like that. And we have a dashboard. We call it mission control. and we have mission control, uh, that we can look at
Yeah,
really
exactly.
quickly and find out, did that sensor have power? What was going on? And then we have a visualizer that tells us all the tracking stuff that
Right.
I talked to you about.
I don't mean this to sound negative, but have you had anybody that just hasn't found any value from this?
Um,
I mean, or struggling with how
yeah,
to,
no, this is great. And it's a really interesting thing to me because, superintendents change jobs, right?
right.
And
Yeah, I've heard that.
we've had a few situations where it's like, especially from an assistant who got the head job because the head guy moved on.
Yeah.
Well, that was his ship. I don't want to be on his ship. I don't want to do the shit that he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
those
pretty
senses
common.
are in the corner, you know? And I'm like, trying to get a relationship going with these guys and say, hey, this is a pretty valuable tool. Yeah, well, that was his thing. I don't.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So there's been some of that. And but no, once we've done our jobs, the superintendent change thing has been a thing.
Yeah.
But once we've done our jobs and once we get, communication going, and again, we have great tools. We live in a time of email, text, all those sorts of things, WhatsApp groups. We can help people through their issues.
Yeah.
And I love that part of it. I've gotten very fond of I've met a whole new group of superintendents I didn't know.
Oh, I bet. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Completely different.
that's been fun. And they don't know who the hell Dave Wilber is, and
Yeah.
I get on a Zoom call with them or, do a training or whatever. And it's like, I guess I speak a little bit knowledgeably. I don't know.
A little
They
bit.
say, wow, these
You're
people,
not bad.
yeah, these people have something going on here.
Yeah.
They want us to win. They want us to succeed. We're not trying to tell them how. There's no cookbook for golf course management, Joel. I don't
Yeah.
believe in shoehorning people into I want to hear them tell me what they want to do, and then I'm going to show them how to go see it. And
Yeah.
that's the fun part.
Let me ask you a completely self-serving question, but those courses that are using carbon-based fertility, does it change? Can you see the difference when they're building
I think
and
you can
growing
see the
humus?
I think you can see the uniformity in moisture.
You can. Okay. I mean, so the data kind of is supporting that. So all this crap I've been saying for 35 to 80, 40 years is not completely off base. I'm just feeling a
Let me
little insecure some days, you
let me
know?
put it to you this way, Joel. I can tell on these maps, and listen, I'm not trying to be super spy here or whatever.
Yeah.
This we kind of run on an NDA kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, of course.
um, I mentioned Javier because Javier is super cool with us,
Yeah.
and he's a good guy, and he's a friend of all of ours,
Yes, he
right?
is. Great
And
guy.
Speckley's a friend, and so
Yes, he
it
is.
works.
Another great guy.
Um, and it was Thomas Bassus's place before that, so that's
Another great guy.
those are family members,
Yeah, exactly.
different. Um, but I can see. Can't believe I'm going to say this. I don't think I've told anybody this. I don't think I've even told Mo this. Maybe I've told Mo this. I can see the people that are working minerals and working carbon. I can see it in their scans.
Yeah. Just in the uniformity.
Yeah.
I remember many, many years ago when we were just doing ultraviolet lights, and you could see it in that too. But this is so much more detailed now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really getting it down. I mean, it
Yeah,
makes sense. I mean, if you're growing humus and feeding bugs, you're going to have better water management. So,
yeah, I can see that. And we have
yeah,
uniformity settings. The guys can look at moisture percentage or uniformity,
yeah,
around that pixel. And the uniformity is definitely different. I can see the under mineralized soil, Joel.
that's
And
interesting.
that probably is going to get some people writing you to say that guy is so full of shit. He really is the biggest bullshitter on Twitter. Like,
You're talking about me or you? I mean, it could be
both of
either
us.
one of us. The combination is exploding some people's heads as we speak.
But I know these places and I know these supers, right? And I know who's kind of doing what,
Yeah.
and I can see that the folks that are they're thinking about mineralization, they're thinking about investment agronomy, right? That's what we've
Right.
all
I
said.
love that term. Yep.
There you can see it in their
Yeah.
scan.
Oh, that's interesting.
But those guys are also the ones that are paying more attention to water management and really trying to get it down to
Everything else. Yeah.
yeah, we want to be great here, not just good.
I get it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Dave, I hate to tell you this, but I just spent another hour with you and it just went
Oh,
by
I
like
talk
in
too
a, in
much.
a
I'm
flash.
sorry.
Like, we got to do this more often. But
I
I,
love talking to you, and
yeah,
I just, I mean, it's funny to think back to when you and I first met, and
We were young men then.
We're young men. We had youthful appearances
Yes, we did, didn't we?
and way less, way less time on the road or whatever. But
Yeah.
I finally feel like, and I know you've been feeling this recently too. After all these years, I'm making that difference that I wanted to make, that I
Yeah.
struggled to make, that I just couldn't do kind of by myself as an independent
Good. That's a
with it.
great feeling.
And I think you guys are doing the same thing. I mean, your staff guys are amazing. We
Yeah.
were on this call the other day, a couple of us. It was fun,
Yeah. Most of us. Yeah. We were all
right?
together talking,
Yeah. And I was looking
man.
around at the talent and just the bright faces and everything, and I was thinking, man, you know, Joel's done something cool here.
After 40 years, it's not bad. An overnight success. No, it's I was saying that to you before. I mean, I feel very, very blessed that I've been able to make a contribution. And I think you're seeing, I say this in all my academies now, that I don't think there's a golf course in the country that doesn't have some level of carbon-based fertility on the shelf somewhere.
Doing something somehow.
Something, so,
Sure.
a humate, a fish, a kelp, a compost, God knows what. But it's as much as some of the naysayers love to still tell us that it's a bunch of crap or bullshit, as they say on their little podcasts, that I don't really care because I've seen the success, and you are a manager of customer success, so you have seen it as well. So
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't, and I know you want to go, but I'll just say this, and I'm not going to get political here, but division never helps anybody.
no, not at all. Never has.
No, I mean, we're seeing that in our politics. It doesn't, the
Yeah, it
division's
doesn't
not
help
helping
anybody.
anybody. The deep and infrequent versus light thing, like that shouldn't be a division.
No.
That's got to be an individual call. And I feel
Yeah.
the same way about fertility and fertility management stuff. So
Yeah.
none of
All
those
good.
divisive things are good for the golf course superintendent sitting there trying to figure out how to, keep their job.
Yeah. Just make it, keep it simple and, understand how things really work. And I love what you're doing. I love the fact that we can still talk about good stuff. And I hope someday you and I can go to Vietnam together. That's really one of my plans would be here.
So
That would be a great plan.
I think about Bourdain and Obama eating pho in a
Yeah.
little pho shop in Saigon.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great picture.
I don't think we'll have the same draw, Joel. I don't think anybody
I
will.
don't think anybody will care. I think we'll just sit there and you and
I
I'll
think
chat
I
and
think
have a
we have
good
that
one.
moment, and if we don't set up a camera and at least try to,
Right. We'll
you
do a
know,
podcast from the
publicize
pho
it.
shop in Vietnam. That'd be
Yeah,
perfect, Dave. Dave,
yeah.
I wish you the greatest luck. We'll do it again, and I think you're going to see more and more and more of this continuing as you go down the road. Maybe I'll bring Mo on and have her talk to me
Ah,
about.
you ought to do
Yeah,
that.
I would love to have her on.
You know what? I didn't realize how strong her agronomy is.
Yeah.
But she
Oh, yeah.
comes from the trenches. She comes from a place of not having a lot to do a lot,
Yeah. She
and
had
it
to learn
shows.
it.
But
Yeah.
man, is she just I couldn't be more impressed with the
Good.
work she's doing. Yeah.
Perfect. Best of luck to you, my friend. I will be in touch. And folks, if you haven't subscribed to the EarthWorks podcast, please do. We'll let you know when we get cool people on like Dave Wilber and Dave. Best of luck, and I will probably see you at the show in February,
I would think.
if not
Right?
before, I hope.
Not before.
If not on a Zoom call somewhere. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right.